Welcome to Voyage Daily Tech, the most important news personalized for you every day, supported by Voyage.com.
After listening to today's news, you'll know. First, Microsoft hands over BitLocker encryption keys to the FBI, shattering Silicon Valley's united front on user privacy. So we'll discuss why this move splits the tech world and what it means for global data privacy under the US Cloud Act. Second, SpaceX's potential $800 billion IPO is set to be one of history's largest, powered by its booming Starlink satellite internet service. We'll analyse why this massive valuation is a turning point for the SpaceTech sector and how it could affect the tech IPO market. Third, overtaken by BYD in EV sales, Tesla pivots hard to software, seeking FSD approval in Europe and China next month. We'll explore how this high-stakes software pivot could transform Tesla's business model and what its vision-only approach means for autonomous competition. Fourth, Intel's stock plummets by $31 billion, not from lack of demand, but from a critical failure to supply its own AI-powering server chips. We'll examine how this execution failure impacts its foundry ambitions and what it means for its competition with a surging AMD. Fifth Ring's new partnership with an AI surveillance firm creates an indirect data pipeline to government agencies, sparking a user privacy firestorm. Today, we'll take a closer look at this surveillance supply chain and its implications for user privacy and the choice between security and features. Our first story begins with a decision that caught everyone by surprise. Microsoft just handed the FBI the keys to unlock its customers' encrypted data. This is a bombshell move that stands in stark contrast to one of the biggest tech showdowns in recent memory. Remember when Apple went to war with the FBI in 2016, refusing to create a backdoor into an iPhone? Nearly every major tech company, including Microsoft itself, publicly backed Apple's stand for encryption. But what's crucial to understand is that what Microsoft did is technically different from what the FBI asked Apple to do. The FBI wanted Apple to build a backdoor, a brand new special tool to break its own security. Apple refused, arguing that a backdoor for the good guys is also a backdoor for the bad guys. What Microsoft did is something called key escrow. Essentially, Microsoft already had the keys because by default, the user's recovery key was stored in their Microsoft Cloud account. Microsoft wasn't asked to create a new vulnerability. They were just ordered to hand over a key they were already holding for customer convenience. But now, the game has completely changed. According to a report from Forbes, the FBI served Microsoft a warrant for data on 3 laptops protected by its BitLocker encryption as part of a fraud investigation, and Microsoft complied. They handed over the recovery keys. And this isn't just some obscure feature for big corporations. BitLocker encryption was originally designed to help a company's IT department recover a lost employee laptop. But now, with Windows 11, it's often turned on by default for regular home users. You might have it active on your personal laptop right now without even realizing it, with your recovery key automatically saved to your Microsoft account. So a feature designed for corporate convenience has become a potential privacy risk for everyone. Microsoft's official statement is that it is legally required to produce keys stored on its servers if it receives a valid legal order. A spokesperson acknowledged that while storing keys in the cloud offers convenience for recovery, it also carries a risk of unwanted access. And when Microsoft says it's legally required, the scope of that is huge. This compliance is governed by laws like the US Cloud Act, which gives US authorities the power to demand data from American tech companies, no matter where in the world that data is physically stored. The data could be on a server in Germany, but because it's a US company, the FBI can demand it. But that justification is not stopping the backlash. US Senator Ron Wyden of Oregon blasted the move, telling Forbes it was irresponsible for companies to secretly turn over users' encryption keys. What's causing such an uproar is that this signals a massive split in the tech world's once united front. Back in 2016, Microsoft stood with Apple. So what changed? Well, some experts point to a strategic shift. Microsoft's business is increasingly tied to massive government and cloud service contracts, which might make them more willing to comply with government demands. This creates a fascinating divergence. You have device-centric companies like Apple that sell you a private, secure box, and cloud-centric companies like Microsoft who sell you a service that is, by its nature, more entangled with government oversight. And the fallout goes far beyond this single case. Privacy advocates are sounding the alarm about the precedent this sets. The core conflict is no longer just about a single company versus a single government agency. The stakes are now global. Jennifer Granick, Surveillance and Cybersecurity Council at the ACLU, delivered the most chilling warning. She stated that this action could now embolden foreign governments with questionable human rights records to expect Microsoft to hand over customer data, putting user privacy at risk worldwide. This is where the situation takes a more complex turn. The Cloud Act creates a blueprint. If the US can legally compel Microsoft to hand over keys for data stored anywhere, other countries will argue they should have the same power. This is the precedent that privacy advocates are so worried about. It essentially tells every government on Earth that if they want to access encrypted data, they don't need to break the encryption. They just need to legally compel the company that holds the key. From a tech giant grappling with government data demands, we pivot to another aiming for a valuation that could reshape Wall Street. Let's start with a single statistic that might just change your entire perspective on this company. Elon Musk's SpaceX is reportedly lining up an IPO that could value it at a jaw-dropping $800 billion. Now, you might be hearing that number and thinking, how is that even possible? So the thing is, that valuation isn't just pulled out of thin air. The key is Starlink, SpaceX's satellite internet service. Starlink has exploded to around 8 million users globally, and it's projected to bring in over $15 billion in revenue in 2025 alone. So while we see the spectacular rocket launches, investors see a massive recurring revenue stream from a global internet provider. That's the engine driving this incredible valuation. A while back, we talked about how a SpaceX IPO could be a powerful catalyst that validates space as a mainstream asset class, similar to what the Google and Facebook IPOs did for the broader tech market. Today's reports make that thesis very real. Bank of America, JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, and Morgan Stanley are being considered to lead what could be one of the biggest global listings in history. The company is reportedly looking to raise $25 billion from the public market. To put that in perspective, the potential $800 billion valuation is double the $400 billion it was valued at just months ago in a private sale. The reason for that massive jump in value is because the market is finally seeing the dual power of SpaceX. The situation presents a fascinating duality. On one side, you have the launch services, which are already dominant, responsible for sending 80% of all mass into orbit last year, while on the other, you have Starlink, whose revenue grew by a staggering 83% in just 1 year. It's exactly the 1-2 punch we flagged before hardware dominance plus a rapidly scaling subscription business that has Wall Street so excited. However, if you zoom out, you'll see another layer of strategy at play. This move doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's happening amid expectations of a bumper year for US tech listings, setting the stage for a massive showdown on Wall Street. A while back, we also warned that a SpaceX IPO could trigger a wave of acquisitions across SpaceTech and, like the dot-com era, risk inflating weaker companies into a bubble. Other startups, dubbed hectocorns for being worth over $100 billion, are also the focus of IPO speculation. This includes OpenAI, with a reported valuation of $1 trillion, and its AI rival Anthropic at $350 billion. Interestingly enough, grouping SpaceX with AI companies like OpenAI is like comparing apples and spaceships. SpaceX is a hard tech company with tangible assets, rockets, satellites, ground stations, and billions in existing revenue. OpenAI, while revolutionary, is a software-based model that is still figuring out its path to long-term profitability. Investors will have to decide if they prefer the proven physical infrastructure of SpaceX or the more speculative but potentially explosive world of AI. Continuing our last discussion about catalysts, one analyst at Seraphim Space called a SpaceX IPO a powerful catalyst that could validate the entire sector. According to one analyst, while colonizing Mars is the headline grabber for SpaceX, investors will be far more focused on its growth plans. The expert added that these potential IPOs from SpaceX and OpenAI will be a litmus test for the entire sector, and there's a huge challenge that comes with this. Once public, SpaceX will have to answer to shareholders who demand profits every single quarter. This creates a potential conflict with its role as a critical piece of global infrastructure. We previously broke down how US defense priorities are tilting towards space. Think the Pentagon's proposed Golden Dome missile defense concept, and how China's latest 5-year plan explicitly aims to make it a major space power, especially in satellite networks. We've seen Starlink become essential for Ukraine's defense, and SpaceX even has a separate military-focused program called Starshield, which recently signed a $1.8 billion contract to build a spy satellite network for the US. intelligence agency. As a public company, how does it balance its duty to shareholders with its deep ties to US national security amid a hotting up space race? It's a geopolitical tightrope walk. The stock market has been riding the AI wave for 2 years, and now it faces a stern test of resilience. As we noted before, a SpaceX listing could pour rocket fuel on SpaceTech, or, if investors lose discipline, inflate a speculative bubble. These monster IPOs will be what finally defines whether this was a bubble or the beginning of a new technological revolution. Speaking of Elon Musk's ambitious ventures, his other major company, Tesla, is facing a very different kind of challenge. For the first time, it's no longer the biggest electric vehicle maker in the world. That title now belongs to China's BYD. But as its car sales falter, Tesla is making an aggressive, high-stakes pivot. At the World Economic Forum in Davos, Elon Musk dropped a bombshell timeline, stating he expects approval for his full self-driving system in Europe and China as early as next month. This is a massive push into territories with notoriously tough regulations. A while back, we walked through how California regulators found Tesla's marketing violated state law and how the company rebranded the feature to full self-driving supervised to underline that the driver stays liable. The latest development is Tesla seeking that exact framing to be blessed in two of the toughest markets on Earth. So what's the big deal about this? In China, for instance, the big hurdle isn't just the driving, it's the data. China has incredibly strict data security laws that say any data collected in China has to stay in China. To get around this, Tesla has already built a massive data center in Shanghai. They're playing by the local rules to get their foot in the door. And in Europe, the issue is liability. Tesla calls its system supervised full self-driving, which is a clever way of saying it's a level 2 system. As we've discussed before, that supervised label is a deliberate legal choice to keep responsibility with the human, unlike Mercedes' certified level 3 drive pilot, where under specific approved conditions, the manufacturer assumes liability. European regulators are looking at this very closely, questioning if this is a safe and fair way to shift all the risk onto the consumer. And remember, after that California ruling, Tesla even removed auto steer from the standard feature list, another sign it's tightening the legal perimeter while pushing for approvals. This isn't just talk. Back in the US, a major milestone was just quietly passed. For the first time, Tesla has started driverless Robotaxi rides in Austin, Texas, with no safety monitors in the car. The stock jumped 3% on the news. We've said before that only a fraction of owners have been willing to buy FSD. Driverless rides and any overseas approvals are how Tesla hopes to turn that into recurring software subscription revenue. Musk has also said the FSD subscription price will rise as capabilities improve, so approvals could become the trigger for that next step. When we place Tesla's vision-only system alongside Waymo's approach, the contradiction becomes clear. Tesla is betting everything on cameras alone. The idea is that if humans can drive with 2 eyes, a car should be able to drive with 8 cameras. This is way cheaper, but it's also controversial. Waymo, in contrast, uses a whole suite of expensive sensors, including LiDAR, which is like radar, but with lasers, to create a super detailed 3D map of the world. Waymo's approach is more expensive and harder to scale, but studies show their vehicles have a significantly lower accident rate involving injuries compared to human drivers. So the big question is whether Tesla's vision-only approach can truly reach that level of safety and reliability. And the pressure to make this work is immense. The company's pivot comes as its dominance is clearly cracking. In its key market of California, Tesla's vehicle registrations fell a staggering 11.4% last year, with its market share slipping below 50%. And the ambition doesn't stop with cars. Musk confirmed Tesla plans to sell its Optimus humanoid robots directly to the public by the end of next year. He then went on the record with a staggering prediction that robots will eventually outnumber humans. This tracks with what we've been watching, Tesla's gradual shift away from one-off hardware margins toward a software-first strategy, aiming to become a subscription powerhouse. Now, about that claim that car AI can just be ported to a robot, many experts in robotics are skeptical. The AI needed to navigate a car on a structured road is vastly different from the AI needed for a robot to walk, balance, open a door, and interact with the chaotic, unstructured world of a human home. The AI for a humanoid robot needs a level of dexterity, balance, and real-world understanding that is orders of magnitude more complex than driving. So while it's a powerful marketing narrative, it oversimplifies the monumental challenge of creating a true general-purpose robot. This isn't just a company facing competition. This is the story of a dethroned king doubling down not on selling more cars, but on a future of autonomous software and humanoid robots. As we've said, it's a high-risk, high-reward pivot that will either redefine the company or become its most spectacular failure. We were just talking about the high-stakes world of automotive manufacturing, and that brings us to another hardware giant facing a crisis of its own making. Intel just watched $31 billion of its market value evaporate. The company's stock plunged 12% in a single day, a brutal hit for a tech giant trying to stage a comeback. But here's where it gets interesting. The problem isn't a lack of demand. It's because everyone wants their chips, and Intel can't keep up. The company is struggling to meet a massive surge in demand for its data center chips, a key component in the AI revolution. You see, while we all hear about the powerful GPUs from companies like NVIDIA that do the heavy lifting for AI, those GPUs can't work in a vacuum. They rely on traditional server CPUs, the kind Intel specializes in, to manage all the data, orchestrate tasks, and basically run the entire show. For a typical AI training setup, you might need 16 to 32 CPU cores for every single GPU. So when a company builds a massive AI data center, they aren't just buying GPUs, they're buying a mountain of CPUs to go with them. This is the demand wave that Intel should have been ready to ride. This is a stunning reversal of fortune. After years of sitting on the sidelines while NVIDIA dominated the AI boom, Intel's stock had been on an absolute tear, surging 84% last year. Investors were betting big on a turnaround, fueled by high-profile investments from the US government and SoftBank. This failure strikes at the very heart of Intel's entire comeback strategy. A huge part of their plan was to become a foundry, a contract manufacturer building chips for other companies. But this failure to meet their own internal demand raises a huge credibility question. If Intel can't accurately forecast and supply chips for its own business, why would a major player like NVIDIA or Broadcom trust them to manufacture their next generation products on time? But the company was caught completely off guard by its own success. As analysts at Bernstein put it, Intel appears to have woefully misjudged the market with its capacity footprint caught massively off guard. They are running factories at full capacity and still can't produce enough of the profitable server chips the AI industry is desperate for. This fumble opens the door even wider for their rivals. And it's not like they can just flip a switch and make more. A semiconductor fab is one of the most complex and expensive factories on Earth. Retooling a production line from, say, PC chips to more complex data center chips can take months, sometimes over a year, and involves massive costs for new equipment and process requalification. Intel didn't just misjudge demand. They had the wrong type times of manufacturing capacity ready to go, a critical execution failure that highlights a lack of agility. In the personal computer market, they've been losing ground to AMD for years. And in the data center, where the real AI money is, they're still playing catch up. And losing ground is putting it mildly. To give you some perspective, just a few years ago in 2019, Intel had a near monopoly on the server CPU market with 97% share. By 2025, that is projected to fall to 72%, with their rival AMD capturing a massive 28% of the market, driven by the success of its EPYC processors. That isn't just a small shift. It's a seismic change in a multi-billion-dollar industry. Analysts at Jefferies noted that Intel has much lower share in the cloud versus AMD and is still struggling with product issues. The AI gold rush is here, but Intel was caught without enough shovels. While demand is booming, the company is struggling with its own execution, leaving investors to question if its long-awaited turnaround has already hit a wall. This is the critical difference between a good turnaround story and the harsh reality of execution. While Intel had the government funding and a new roadmap, its struggles stand in stark contrast to AMD's successful turnaround, which was built on years of disciplined execution and relentless innovation. While Intel struggles to supply its chips, our final story is about a company whose data supply chain is sparking a user privacy firestorm. The company behind millions of video doorbells, Ring, just partnered with an AI surveillance firm known for providing data to government agencies, including ICE. The news triggered a firestorm online, with influencers calling for users to smash their Ring cameras over fears of a growing surveillance state. In response, Amazon-owned Ring issued a direct and forceful denial, stating, quote, "Ring has no partnership with ICE, does not give ICE videos, feeds, or back-end access, and does not share video with them." Now, Ring's statement can be technically true while still being misleading. The core of the issue isn't a direct partnership, but the creation of what experts call a surveillance supply chain. Ring's new partners, like Flock Safety, create vast networks of data. While Ring might only share video with local police, those local agencies often have data sharing agreements that can pass that information along to federal agencies like ICE. In fact, reports have shown that even in states with laws meant to prohibit this, local police have shared license plate reader data from Flock with federal agencies. This creates an indirect pipeline that gets around the spirit, if not the letter, of Ring's denial. But that's not the whole picture. The partnership is for a new feature called Community Requests, which is essentially a rebrand of a controversial old program. It allows local law enforcement agencies to request your video footage when investigating a case. Ring says its integration with the surveillance firm Flock isn't even live yet, and that the program is designed only for local agencies. Believe it or not, this rebrand is a major part of the story. Ring's previous program, called Request for Assistance, faced huge criticism for its direct police partnerships. By switching to this new community requests model, Ring now uses third-party companies as intermediaries. Critics argue this might be a strategic legal move to offload liability and public backlash onto partners like Flock and Axon, distancing Ring from direct involvement while the data sharing continues. So what's the real endgame here? Ring's founder, Jamie Siminoff, is back at the company, and he has long believed that more cameras lead to safer communities. The new system works through third-party evidence management platforms like Flock and the Taser and bodycam company Axon. Any local police department partner with them can request your camera footage through the Ring app. Now, if that was just the appetizer, the main course is just being served. While users can choose to ignore these requests, there's a critical detail buried in the company's policy. Ring may still provide footage to law enforcement without a user's consent and without a warrant in situations the company itself deems an emergency. Although you can enable end-to-end encryption to block this, it disables many of the camera's key features. This decision brings both benefits and comes with inherent risks, forcing you to choose between privacy and functionality. From a technical standpoint, those key features like AI person detection rely on Ring's servers in the cloud to analyze the video. When you turn on end-to-end encryption, the video is scrambled in a way that only your device can unscramble it. Ring's servers can't see the video anymore, so they can't analyze it, and the features stop working. The technology actually exists to do this. AI processing directly on the device itself, which would give you both security and features, but Ring's system isn't built that way, creating what some call an encryption penalty that discourages users from opting for maximum privacy. Ultimately, any camera connected to the internet comes with the risk that it could be accessed by someone other than you, no matter what the company says.
That's it for today on Voyage Daily Tech. Follow, share, and stay tuned for daily updates coming your way tomorrow.